Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Who Let Us Podcast, episode 3.
We're doing this again.
We are doing this again.
We're doing this again.
We will be doing this for the foreseeable until we can't be bothered to do it again. You best not have just spilled coffee on my sofa.
I didn't spill the coffee on the sofa, but I think I just did ASMR.
That's because you slurp it like a weirdo.
But Sophie, it's something. I was overdoing it for the thing. Anyway, don't mind. We're actually videoing this one.
We are videoing this one. Let's not get excited too soon because it may not happen.
Yeah,
yet.
it may actually literally
like,
not.
I'm thinking of how hard it's going to be for me to edit this video. So
yeah.
Well,
what we're talking about, Sophie?
This week we're talking about Dog Day Afternoon, which was actually voted for by you.
Was it?
Well, yeah, that's what.
You put the vote thing in.
Nobody voted for it on Spotify though, so all I'm gonna ask. No, I'm just gonna do one little ask.
Not a single human being.
Please interact with us so that we have some interaction to have with people.
Yeah.
Rate and review, pretty please. Not sure what you're laughing at.
I don't know, just like
I want to see that like 3.9k ratings.
3.9k ratings.
Like on Spotify, you know, when you go on it, it's like 3.9 and it's like 4.8 and you're like, oh, this is a great podcast.
Yeah.
I do rate the ones that I listen to now.
Do you?
Just for the
I
simple
don't think
fact
I've
that,
ever rated anything.
well, I normally wouldn't, but now that we've started this, I went back and I was like, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good.
It's like every YouTuber I've ever watched, and they'll go like and subscribe. I'm like, I'm not going to do either of those things.
I have subscribed. I'd subscribed to Bailey Seri, and I think she's maybe the only person I've ever subscribed to on YouTube.
I think I still just
I've never been a big YouTube person, in all honesty, though.
Oh, yeah.
I never went through that phase of just finding random stuff. I have done very, very like short spouts of it, but nothing major.
I've done a lot of YouTube in my
Not a
time.
big YouTuber.
Just big time procrastinator, so it tends to be what.
See, I also am.
I do it to fall asleep as well. Like,
But
I'll just
that's
put
when
like
I watch true crime documentaries.
Oh, right.
And Bailey Sarian is a true crime YouTuber.
Right, okay.
She's not the best in the world.
If she ever listens to this, it's just gonna feel fucking called out.
No, she is great, to be fair.
I accidentally slipped that time.
Wasn't even an on purpose.
Well, it wasn't even like on purpose ASMR. I just did like accidental ASMR. Maybe that should be the ASMR. Oh fuck! I fucked it. ASMR.
ASMR.
Right, we're going to talk about Dog Day Afternoon because that's kind of why we're here.
Let's talk about Dog Day Afternoon because we've now been talking for 4 minutes.
4 minutes! Jesus Christ, about nothing.
We'll cut most of this out, won't we?
Oh, yeah, probably.
So I watched it last night.
Same.
I was supposed to watch it with Adam. He was like, yeah, I'll watch it with you. I've already seen it, but I'll watch it with you. And then we came downstairs and he was like, oh, get Dog Day Afternoon fired up. I was like, yeah, we'll do. Put it on. And he sat playing Call of Duty and I was like, waiting, just looking at TikToks on my phone. And then someone from work rang him and he looked at us and he was like, oh, you're not watching this? And I was like, sorry, I thought I was waiting for you. And he was like, oh no, I meant like just put it on and I'll just watch bits of it. I was like, fuck's sake. So I'd missed like a total 15 to 20 minutes of
possible
time.
watching time.
Yeah, so I was like, oh.
Fair play. That sounds like a PO2 on that. Like,
it's very Adam.
Yeah. I ended up watching it with 2 housemates who, like, I was just like, hey, I'm watching this film for my podcast. And then, like, obviously I was like, you should watch the podcast. But, like, I was...
yeah, also listen to the podcast.
And, so I like, suggested it to my 2 housemates. And I'm like, as soon as I give them the premise, they're like, fuck yeah. That sounds wild.
Did they like the film?
Yeah, they did, actually.
I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was, like, riveting or anything like that. It's slow.
It's very...
fair, for a bank robbery, it's
not slow.
I thought it was pretty slow.
It starts with the bank robbery. It's just like, you know what, I actually, in terms of like, if I was like to give this a, like, if I was to say something that I think is like really, really cool about this film, is that like, especially with the fact that it starts like straight away. It's just like, here's some nice shots of New York, and then it's just like,
straight in.
Bank heist. But like, it's like the shittest bank heist ever.
Well, obviously, I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah,
so I'll get into why they probably didn't do anything from before that.
Proper shit bank heist. But what's kind of great is that I kept thinking like, wow, I kept thinking of like modern films and how like, especially like a film if it was like made now, they would either do like the first 20 minutes would be prior to the bank
build up and stuff.
You'd build up the characters and stuff like that.
What's that bank heist one with Ben Affleck and Casey Affleck called again?
I don't think Casey Affleck's in it. The Town.
The Town. Yeah,
that one
Casey
starts with a
Affleck's in
bank.
it.
That one, what?
Casey Affleck's in it.
I don't think he is. It's fucking Jeremy Renner, man.
No, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
I think he's in another film that Ben Affleck directed. Yeah, he is. He's in Gone Baby Gone.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Gone Baby Gone actually because we watched it quite close in time as well. So
yeah.
I'm just but that also goes into a lot of the aftermath of that. Yeah. Whereas with this, he went straight prison.
Well, it was just. Well, I'm guessing so. Yeah.
I'll tell you about
spoilers for the film because it is. I personally think it's really, really good.
You can't listen to our podcast without
it's basically
knowing that it's going to be spoiler filled. One of our friends didn't listen to the first of our episodes simply because he didn't want the film to be spoiled.
Yeah, I think that's quite logical to be fair.
So, well, that's it. I mean, if you don't want it to be literally told to you, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be discussing the case behind it. So as soon as you know the case, you pretty much know the film anyway.
Yeah, or you're gonna be able to like know where the film has like
come from and
taken the piss out of certain things and stuff like that, not done it correctly and shit.
Yeah, which to be fair, this film is quite true to exactly what happened.
That's pretty interesting.
The footage looks very similar. Obviously, there's not a lot of footage. It's not a long story.
Yeah, I kept thinking like I was like surprised, when I looked at the runtime, I was like, it's 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. I think because
it does fly by. I will actually kind of say that. Like, yeah, I don't think I really felt it that much.
I paused it at one point because I was like, I'm gonna make some popcorn.
Yeah.
And it was like 1 hour 20 minutes in, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think I'd be that far in.
Yeah.
But I surprisingly.
I paused it like an hour in, and I was like, wow, this is actually kind of incredible. Like it's just the way like it like shifts and moves, but also what I was saying about like especially like the way modern films would do it. I kept just thinking about the fact that like modern films the way they would do it is like they would like then they would like throw in flashbacks and they throw in all of these things, but everything is told through everything is told through action.
Time, yeah.
Like you can tell, like, and I also think this is just kind of how good. Realistically, I think this is how good Al Pacino is. I think he is like a terrific actor. He's so fucking good. But
apparently he didn't want to do it, and we're going to ask Dustin Hoffman to do it.
Will he?
But apparently Dustin Hoffman was Al Pacino's rival at the time. For like parts and stuff.
They kept like getting. It was very like Stallone and Schwarzenegger later on.
Right. It was off the back of, I think it was Godfather 2 that Pacino was in.
Yeah, because the guy that plays what's his mate in the onto the sofa. That's actually so upsetting. Would you
please go and get me the tea towel?
Yeah, of course I'll go get you the tea towel.
Quick pause.
Ooh. Tidy.
I got tea on my hand as well.
As if you thought that I would be the one that spilled as well.
I know, what a knob.
Dickhead.
Anyway,
but
we're back.
Like it's.
What were we saying?
We were talking about
the other actor.
The other actor he's called John Cazale and plays Sal.
Only known as Sal, but that is actually his real name.
Right.
Whereas Sonny was John.
John.
Leon was, and this is where I have problems with the way that John himself actually treats his own transgender wife.
Yeah, it's very strange.
So their dead name was Ernie.
Right.
Which John refers to this person as a lot. Not in the film. Well, obviously he does also call them Leon, because it's Leon in the film.
Yeah.
But their dead name was Ernie. But their name was Elizabeth Eden, or Liz for short. So I am going to say Liz.
I mean,
because I am respectful.
Yeah, I mean,
that person. What? You know what I mean? Like,
you just got really, really serious as you said.
I am serious. Like it's very serious. And even when I watched a documentary called The Dog, which came out in 2014,
was this about
John Waterwitz, I think his name is pronounced.
Okay.
He actually shouted at someone and said, "It's pronounced Waterwitz," and I was like, "Whoa!" In this documentary.
Okay.
His father was Polish.
Right.
His mother was American Italian. So he had a lot of
Right. Okay.
cultural history, essentially, in his line. In the film, though, his mother is very Italian.
So Italian.
She's like such a stereotypical Italian mother. If the
the way
son
she's
was
just-
caught doing the things, that he was doing.
Yeah. She's just like, come on, come out of the bag. Like, it's fine. The police have said it'll
She's
be
like
fine.
a bit
Fine.
hysterical, isn't she?
Yeah,
Like,
she does.
but you know what? Like when I watched the dog documentary, she's in it a lot.
Right.
And I would say they probably portrayed it exaggerated, but not far from probably what she was like. I tried to find footage of the actual real event, but I couldn't find a lot.
Yeah, what was I going to say?
So let's talk about the film.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I don't know if you'll know this. So they played brothers in Godfather.
Who did?
So the guy that so John Cazale and Al Pacino
Well,
played brothers in Godfather.
Pacino got him that role.
That doesn't shock me, to be honest.
But the
Got
director,
the
I think,
worst hairline I've ever seen a man have.
Yeah.
Like to have like long hair as well, like real bottle on that. To have like long hair
Adam
and the
was
worst
convinced
hairline.
he would have been in a horror film, looking like kind of as creepy as he was.
Yeah.
But I think obviously that's
Spot
mainly
on
for the
Pennywise
role.
if he needed to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, he died like 3 years after. He died like 2 years after this film came out.
Did
Like I always think because I was like
Because I've
because
seen pictures of him and he looks like he got a lot older than that.
nah.
Just no.
Like he
you
died,
are wrong,
I
Sophie.
think.
Can
I'm
you just
sure,
Google that really quickly?
Yeah, I'm sure he died in like 77 because I'm sure I looked it up and I was like, what the fuck? Because when I was watching the film last night, I was like, you know what I mean?
Like, why is he not being
a lot of
involved in it?
actors? He died in 78.
What?
Yeah, like.
But look at pictures of him. He
No, I
looks
know.
a hell
If
of
you
a
look
lot
at his
older than...
IMDb photo,
Yeah, that's
he
what
looks
I was...
old as fuck.
Yeah,
He looks
does
like
look
10 years
older.
older than he does
Looks
in
like a different person
Drugged It.
altogether,
Yeah,
doesn't
basically. But
The hair. It's the hair.
Oh, it is the hair. But no, like what's interesting I think about that is that like obviously they played brothers in that, but like yeah, he died like this came out in 75, so I think he died like 3 years later. But I kept being like, you know how like Al Pacino and like, you know, especially like Robert De Niro and stuff like that, especially like those big actors of especially like those 70s movies that were always like such like they always felt like so risky. Like I'll say what I'll say about like the 70s is like it always gets revered as like one of the best times in filmmaking in terms of like
I mean, this is pretty progressive for its time.
Super
in
progressive.
70, well, let's say they're filming in 73, 74, something like that. Because, I mean, the bank heist was only 72.
It was only 72.
So the rights were bought very, very quickly.
Yeah, it was like
And, I mean, it's off the back of a trans story, essentially.
yeah.
And, I mean, for the fucking 70s,
And
that's wild.
like, you know,
Even now, that would be risky for
I
a
know.
director to take on.
Well, it's almost like not even that. It's more
And I
just
don't
like
mean risky because I think it's risky. I think it's fantastic.
yeah, I think it's
I
like
just
cool.
want to put my
It's
opinion
cool
out
that
there.
like to actually just put that in.
No
But like
turfs in this house.
to make films, and it would have been easy, especially at the time, to like not make that an element of the story. And I actually think like the actor that plays Leon, the character that keeps being referred to as Leon, like the actor that plays that character is like, I don't think plays it as a stereotype. I kept thinking there was like maybe little bits where it was like a lot of like this like, oh, I'm gonna put my shirt over my.
The thing is,
thing.
though, what you have to remember is she would have been like that anyway.
Yeah.
Because obviously she's living life as a woman. She's not going to want a robe to come open when she's on.
Yeah, I kept thinking I was
national
like,
news
this is
and
quite
stuff like
like.
that.
I kept thinking like this is actually quite a sensitive performance. I think
The trans character was played well. However,
the relationship was fucked though.
oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to get into that anyway. But I do think that could have, and more so now it would happen, but they still could have done it in the 70s because I have researched this.
Yeah.
They could have used a trans actress.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And I've got names. I've got receipts.
You got receipts?
Yeah. Because I wanted to see who, as trans actresses, was like active at that time.
Right, okay.
So there was, excuse me. So 2 trans actresses of the time. I did find more, but one of them actually died in 74. So
Right,
I was
okay.
like, well, they're probably not going to have been
maybe
obviously able to
the
do that,
it,
or would have been potentially recast due to their death.
Yeah,
or whatever,
totally.
anyway. But there was an actress called Holly Woodland who was also a Andy Warhol muse.
Oh, right, okay, that's pretty cool.
And Jackie Curtis.
That
as
would be
well.
like super New York as well. Like
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
really cool.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, Andy Warhol, like, they would have been known, you know what I mean? And it wouldn't have taken a lot to find
Was
out.
Warhol big at that point though?
I would imagine so.
I don't think did he not get big until like 77, 78 sort of thing? I can't remember.
But there was still an actress of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Trans, and I think having seen a picture of them, they could have played it very well.
Could have played
as well.
yeah.
From what Liz Eden looked like at the time.
Right,
well.
okay.
And I think they could have played it really well.
Fair.
So that's my only critique, but you also have to remember it's the early 70s as well.
Yeah, I mean...
And as annoying as that is, and I hate saying, oh, well, back in the end days, I didn't do that. Like,
you have to work
they wouldn't have taken that big of a risk,
I mean, I'm not being funny, you have to work by context. And, like, the context is, at the time, they just wouldn't really have cast trans actors.
Which is annoying, because...
It's annoying, but...
They absolutely could have.
They could have, but they
don't think that
have.
they needed to have a man play that role.
I agree with you.
100%.
Like, I think, but yeah, I kept thinking when I was... yeah, so... In terms of
That's
like...
my only critique.
Yeah.
But even then, it's only a 21st century critique, essentially. But I do believe they could have just, done a little bit of research.
Yeah, totally.
Found that Hollywood... I mean, she lived until around about 2010-ish or something like that.
Oh, fuck.
So
okay.
she lived, and she was active then. You know what I mean? She was in films of that time.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
I looked
pretty
it
cool.
up. I needed to know this shit.
But yeah, like I kept... especially like films of this era. Films of this era are always like really like revered, because you always think about like Godfather 2, like Taxi Driver is 76.
Mm-hmm.
Like movies of this type of this time, and like the way these filmmakers were like completely and utterly allowed freedom to kind of do what the fuck they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Like you also got like the X. We just did the Exorcist. That was 74. Like that was the year before. Like in terms of like the type of big movies that were coming out was stuff like this. Like everyone went to go see these type of things. It's just like
can you imagine all the people in 75 seeing this and being like, oh, he robbed this bank to pay for his transgender wife's sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
What the fuck?
I know.
And you know what? I love that part of the story. I think
I
that's
quite like that.
amazing. Like, more people should do that now.
That's the pitch. Like, I really think that's like the
100%.
pitch to this film.
We're doing a bank robbery movie where the guy robs a bank to pay for his transgender wife.
He's married to a cis woman, but is also married to a trans woman.
I mean, he was separated from the cis
Was he
woman.
actually separated at that point? Right, okay.
But technically he was still married, because the marriage to Liz Eden was not like official.
Well, wasn't the priest like thrown out of the church?
Apparently so. I didn't read that. I don't think there's there's not loads of information about this.
That's mad, actually, because this is such like a... It feels like this should have like about 18 documentaries made about it.
When they got married across the road from like a police precinct, and they were stood outside, and the police came over and they were like congratulating them and stuff like that, and then they kind of realised that the bride was essentially male and all the bridesmaids were male as well, and they were like, whoa, we didn't know what was going on here. And in an interview, Liz Eden was like, yeah. And she said to the police and was like, yeah, neither did the priest. And they were like, oh. So I think he kind of got
duped.
a very big slap on the wrist after that. Because obviously gay marriage wouldn't have been legal then, and that's what it would have been classed as, because Liz Eden was obviously...
It wasn't legal until like 2011 or something, wasn't it?
I mean, it's been
in New York, I think,
places.
Specifically. I don't think it was until like...
Well, that's it. Obviously, it definitely wouldn't have been legal.
It's still
but
not.
I don't think they were legally married.
I think you still technically can't do it in a church. In America, I think. Because their like connection of like church and state are like really weird. Yeah. But yeah, like, so like films of the time, I just think like, as much as what I just think is so like terrific about this film is I think it's really emblematic of like films that were made at the time where they were like real risks. Like filmmakers made a film, and like they talk about this all the time with Red Letter Media.
They made what they wanted to make as well, didn't they?
And they make something which is like, because I kept thinking like this is like really challenging your audience, because I kept thinking like like Disney does a lot of
you're rooting for them?
Disney does a lot of this now where they've almost like simplified a lot of their stories and gone like everyone's all the characters are super progressive, all the characters, and it's like no, what actually makes kind of good stories a lot of the times is like when like the social norm is challenged, and then but you want it to be like complicated and nuanced. You don't want it to just be like, oh yeah, this is this. Everything is really, really basic and simple. And I'm like, I really don't want basic and simple, especially like the kind of films that I want to watch. Like I want to watch something which is like really complicated. That's why I love like directors like Sean Baker. Sean Baker, who made
I was
he made
telling
a film.
someone at work to watch Tangerine the other day, and I was like, "It's the Florida Project." Is it really?
Made Florida Project. Made a film called Red Rocket that came out like 2 years ago, and like in that, the main character.
Oh, hold on, we've zoomed again.
Have we? But yeah, like what was I saying?
Red Rocket.
Red Rocket. Like in terms of like Sean Baker, the kind of like films that I really like. I really like his films because I think they're all very like weird and challenging, and they like question what you think about these characters. Like, Martin McDonagh does a lot of that in terms of his writing. Like, I don't know, like I think people are really getting used to like basic stories. Like,
I love it.
People have kind of got to the point where I think people have got used to these like really like obviously this person is a bad person, and obviously like this person is a good person.
Yeah, like
and
there's an antagonist and a protagonist.
And
there doesn't always have to be that.
You know, like you can get to the end of Taxi Driver and think that Travis Bickle is you still think he's a maniac. Like, I get to the end of that film and I still think, like, he's going to...
Did he also save a young teenage girl who'd been put into fucking sex trafficking, essentially?
Like, it's such a complicated narrative, and it, like, really questions, like, what you think about these people.
He's
like,
a murderer, but he also saved a 12-year-old from having to prostitute herself, from being made to prostitute herself, essentially. Like,
and that stuff is so interesting, and it asks, like, they asked a lot of questions, I think, whereas films, I think a lot of, like, especially like big releases, they just fucking answer them, and I'm like, I don't want answers. I really want to get out of a film and feel like I have to think for myself, like, and I just think that's like such a shame. Ooh, this is very, very cool. This is something I really, really like about Sidney Lumet, who directed this film. Sidney Lumet was like very famous director. Like the film that people like, everyone will have heard the name of is 12 Angry Men. He made that.
Yeah. That's like a courtroom drama, isn't it?
Courtroom.
I haven't seen it.
Have you never seen it?
Based on
12 Angry Men is really, really good. Is that based on a true story?
It is based on true story.
But like, he's a very like. What I found really, really interesting in terms of like, I've seen a few of his films, like he made Serpico, which is Al Pacino.
As well. A little bit after this, wasn't it?
It was like, I think that was like 79, I want to say, or 78. But no, basically like he asks a lot of moral questions. He asks a lot of his audiences, and he like asks you to be like, how do you feel about this? And I think that's what I find so interesting about him. He did but what's really, really cool in terms of how he made films, I don't know if he had a theatre background, but he rehearsed everything. So what he would do is, like, prior to shooting, would get all of the actors together and they would rehearse the film like it was a play.
I read that, actually, because they were doing like ad-lib stuff during the film.
Yeah.
So
but he finds that in the rehearsal prior to shooting the film.
Yeah, so you know that bit when Sonny goes outside and he's like, Attica.
Yeah.
That was like completely...
Because that's based on that was like a real thing that happened like not long before.
Yeah, I should have researched it, but I forgot.
But the impression I get from the film, and I think I looked it up like a little bit, is that like essentially it was like the police seriously like fucked up like bank robbery where like the robbers and everybody a lot of people within the bank, like innocent people, got killed by police. Essentially at the time.
Attica prison riot, that's what it must have been.
It was a prison riot.
Yeah.
But like I get the impression that it just feels like everyone got kind of like fucked over by it, and the police were like in bad stead. That's what makes it so interesting when like you get like
the crowd are like cheering.
The crowd are cheering. Like, I always find really, really interesting. You know, whenever he goes to like pat someone down, they always like, as he goes lower, they're always like, ooh, like I'm like.
I think that's off the back of the fact of them finding out that he was gay.
That he's gay, yeah. I find that really interesting.
It's of the time as well where they're like shouting the F word at him and stuff like that, and then one of the police when they've got the Leon character in the barber shop, and he like kind of half laugh coughs and pretends like I'm just coughing, like there was something wrong with this kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? When I can't remember what the character had said or what the detective guy had said to the character to get that reaction.
Yeah,
but it's like the touch on the feelings of like being transgender and being gay of the time, but they do it in a manner where it's not that's not the opinion of the people making the film. Essentially, they do it like that's just what the opinions were of the time.
That's something I found. That's something that I think is very, very cool. I think about like Sidney Lumet. Like I don't think he ever puts like. It's weird. He just like. I think what I kind of always got about like his stories is that he plays them very, very straight. He actually kind of sits in a very, very moralistic, interesting place. But like, I don't think he doesn't do what essentially I think a lot of like modern writers or modern filmmakers do, which is like they impose their opinions onto their characters. Mm-hmm. They're like, no, that's the character. I have my different opinion.
Yeah,
I'm going to present that character as what they are.
Well, essentially, he let them develop their own characters. So a lot of in the bank teller people, they all were like ad lib as well because he let them discover their own character.
I love some of the stuff with the bank tellers.
Yeah,
I think
great.
all that is hilarious. Like some of it's like hilariously funny.
Yeah, when she's like kicking the gun up and stuff like that, doing like the army things.
Yeah, when she's like, and he's like showing her how to do it, and they all seem to have like a nice.
He just gives her the gun.
Like Sonny has like he seems to have like a very nice relationship with the tellers, whereas Sal doesn't. Sal is still very, very disconnected from them.
When I tell you a bit more about it, you'll kind of understand a bit more in that. There's more information.
There was a film.
Oh my god, I've zoomed again. What the fuck's going on?
But basically, he made a Sidney Lumet, and it was the first film I ever watched of his. And I watched it probably when I was like maybe like a little bit too young to watch it. But it was a film called.
Why we've done that with almost.
Yeah, I know with most of the stuff we've ever watched. But it was film called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Okay.
And it was the last film he made. Like he died like right after doing it.
Huh.
Like literally, like I'm talking like I feel like he got the edit in and it was then shown posthumously. Like he got the edit done and then he died.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like he like hung on. But that's got like Ethan Hawke, Philip Seymour Hoffman in, Marissa Tomei, like really, really good cast. But like, Michael Shannon's in it as well. But he talked about how I love how big that man can go, and it somehow still just feels right for everything you're watching.
He's right in everything. Have you seen The Night Before, the Christmas film with Seth Rogen?
I've never actually seen it. You love it. You watch it like every Christmas,
every Christmas Eve, because it's a stoner Christmas film.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah,
and Michael Shannon is like. What's the character in Scrooge which shows him like the past, present and future?
Marley.
Yeah, so he's like Marley.
Right, okay.
So he like shows Joseph Gordon-Levitt like his past or whatever, and he shows Seth Rogen his future because his wife's pregnant and stuff, and it's so funny and it's ridiculous. And there's another guy in it who's in the Avengers, and he plays the other Iron Man suit guy.
He's got the wings.
He's got goggles. Yes, he's got goggles on.
What the hell's his name? Fuck. Anthony Mackie.
It's Anthony Mackie, yeah. Anthony Mackie. So he's in it. He plays like a sports type guy. I think he's like an American footballer.
Right.
And he's like too famous to come home and stuff like that. But they have this Christmas Eve tradition where they go out because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's parents died and he doesn't have anybody on Christmas Eve essentially. And it's hilarious. It's great. They do a little Run DMC Christmas song.
Nice.
It's just fantastic.
Fair. Okay.
And like I'm telling you all this, but it doesn't really ruin it.
This doesn't ruin it.
Because you have to still watch it.
But God, we were talking about Michael Shannon.
You got into the name because I like Michael Shannon. I really do like Michael Shannon.
I really like Michael Shannon.
He's great.
He can both do
he's ridiculous as well.
Oh, he's so over the top. Like I love that like meme that's come up of him of like the thank you for everything. I'm gonna go home. Yeah, like he's such an awkward man.
Yeah.
But he like has this ability to go like really big with his performances, but it feel really natural within what's happening. Like I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Take Shelter. Oh, he's like insanely good in that film. But like but he was talking about Sidney Lumet and how much he really, really liked Sidney Lumet and how much he liked working with him. And he basically said that like he was talking about the fact that like he'd never done anything like that before. Like he was like he was talking about it in this interview, you know, where like actors do that. I can't remember who it's for, like GQ or something, where they like go back over their career.
Yeah.
But he talked about Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and he was like, I'd never done anything like that before. Like we rehearsed the entire film, and he was like, I met all the actors that were in like scenes that I wasn't in.
Yeah, because sometimes they don't meet each other.
They don't even meet each other because obviously they're just not needed on set at the same time.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I met everybody. He was like, we all hung out, like, and he was like, and then we made a film, but knew every part of it, and he was like,
Yeah.
so therefore everyone almost like knew what level everyone was
I was
playing.
gonna say it gives you a better reaction to other things that are going on as well, like off screen or whatever, or
Yeah.
in another part of the film or something like that. So it's quite a cool way to do it instead of just reading a script.
Yeah.
And having like no emotion behind
He was
it
very
kind of thing.
he was just very, when it comes to Sidney Lumet, I kind of weirdly think about him in a very, very similar vein to I think of Mike Leigh, who's an English director. He like wrote plays and stuff like that, but what he would do is he made a film called Naked. I think weirdly David Thewlis is in it.
Not seen it. Well, no, I don't.
But it's
not that I'm aware of.
but like basically, well, anyway, like a lot of the films that he's made called like made film called like Happy Go Lucky with Sally Hawkins and stuff like that. But like all of his films he has like a 4-month rehearsal period.
right.
Like prior to making it, but he turned a lot of them into plays. He's written a lot of plays as well. But like, what he does is he just gets like a group of actors that he likes, and he wants them to play
Just
these
keeps
roles,
them kind of thing.
and then they just improvise in rehearsal, and then he writes everything down, and that becomes the script.
Yeah.
So therefore, like everyone like knows their characters in and out by the time they start shooting,
Yeah.
and like
Which is good.
they've like basically his name is on the screenplay.
It's like method acting, but method directing.
Yeah, but like his name's on the screenplay, but
They kind
actually
of wrote it
technically
themselves,
everyone
yeah.
wrote it together. Like,
Yeah.
it's a real like company type thing, like proper like super like like theater company kind of thing. But like, and I really kind of appreciate that about Sidney Lumet actually, because I just don't think
It's an
there was.
interesting way to do it, definitely.
Because people don't think like film acting is like you turn up and there's like a boom operator who's like 2 feet from you and you have to like
Yeah.
stay in the moment and stuff like that, and like there's like no rehearsal, like you just come in, you just kind of doing
you just
it on the
take
moment.
after take until you get it right. kind of thing.
But obviously like theatre actors, like there's
They
like
rehearse for
they
a long
wanna
time.
they want to
They
rehearse
don't
as well.
have another shot in the moment, do they?
Like they feel like they don't have another shot, and what
well, they don't. They
Well,
have
yeah,
to get it right.
they have to get it right.
right.
And what I think is so kind of, I love when like, especially I love hearing about like film stories of like when directors have had to like handle that. Like I love hearing about that. Like like The Lighthouse. Willem
Still
Dafoe.
have not watched The Lighthouse.
What?
I still
Have you
haven't
still
watched-
not?
No, I still haven't.
Are you
watched
taking the
it.
fucking piss out of me?
Honestly, it's ridiculous. I really want to watch it.
It's
but
really good, you know. I
you
think
know
you'd
what?
really like
I'm
it.
gonna watch it tonight.
There's just like a 4-minute scene of Rob Pattinson masturbating. Do you know what I mean?
Fantastic.
Weird.
Can't wait to watch that.
Terrific
Not sure
film.
why you thought that would entice me to watch
I
that
feel
film.
like that just entices everyone to watch it. They go like, "What?" And then the what turns into, "I didn't watch this film." Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I already
that
wanted
sounds
to
wild.
watch it, but not for Robert Pattinson masturbating, because that's an unusual
it's an unusual
reason to want to watch a film. I just want to watch a
I
good
just
Robert
wanna
Pattinson masturbating.
I want
If you'd
to. I
said
want to watch
naked,
Edward
I
from
could have
Twilight.
maybe understood where
He's
you
not
would have
naked,
thought.
like.
No, but my point is, if you had said Robert Pattinson's naked,
Yeah.
I could understand why you would think a female would be enticed in by
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying?
He also like claps like a fish at one point.
Because we're
It's
so dense
It's very weird.
that naked men attract us
Naked
to
men-
films.
That's all women are interested in when it comes to films, isn't
Obviously.
it? They want to know
Isn't there a film where
does he
Michael-
hang dong? Well, then I'm there. Like, man hangs
Isn't there a
dong.
film where Michael Fassbender's naked? Like, really naked?
Yeah, Shame. Yeah,
yes.
man's got a
Because he's like
hog.
obsessed with sex or something, isn't he?
Well, he's a sex addict, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, obsessed with sex. or
Obsessed. I meant
sex addict.
addicted. I meant addicted.
So
Sorry,
the
what were we
Lighthouse.
talking about?
What I
The
find,
Lighthouse,
The
yeah.
Lighthouse. What
I'll
I find
watch it.
so interesting about that is that like I love hearing those like stories of like directors who had to deal with certain things. Like, so Willem Dafoe like created a theatre background, did a lot of like transgressive theatre when he was like younger.
I can
when
see him
when he
in
was like a
theatre,
young
definitely,
actor.
yeah.
Well, just like from the sounds of it, there was just like a lot of like nakedness with the plays that he was in when he was young. But
Maybe just liked being naked.
basically like Robert Eggers, the director, like talked about the fact that he had to he had like Willem Dafoe who wanted to rehearse everything, and Robert Pattinson thinks that if you rehearse it, you lose things in the rehearsal. So when you're shooting, you've lost
Just their
parts
method,
of performance.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And he's like talking about in interviews how like interesting it is to like navigate two different, completely like opposite ends.
then you've got
and all you
Willem
have in
Dafoe
that entire
coming-
film is two actors.
Yeah, you've got Willem Dafoe coming from theatre though, and then you've got Robert Pattinson coming from Twilight. So you know,
So he just knows how to perform.
That man was a fucking shimmering vampire. I almost said shimmering
That
diamond.
wasn't even the computer generated imagery. He just does that.
He just shimmers.
I've heard that before.
Robert Pattinson
I've heard that they
is
kept having to like
shimmering
dim
man.
him down for Batman.
Well, like, Robert, you're
kept being
shining
like,
too bright in this scene.
Batman is supposed to be a dark character. You need to stop shining.
It's called The Dark Knight for a reason, not
It's
fucking shiny
actually,
night.
it's interesting when you watch that back. Actually, like it is actually a weirdly, strangely, almost like similar performance. He's a better actor
Moody
now.
Predator.
Yeah, Moody Predator. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of almost like a similar performance. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a similar kind of character.
It's
like
amazing that them two have such a recognition from Twilight, really. Like, obviously, Kristen Stewart,
I quite like some of the films
for
that
a
she's
while,
been in.
was a terrible actress.
I still don't think she's that good.
No, but the thing is, though,
But
she's a
she's
bit of
been
a
in
gay
more-
icon now, and that's what's kind
yeah.
of given her the career that she has, which I think is amazing, because she's just like...
Yeah, I didn't see that film where she played Princess Diana. I thought that just looked a bit weird. I've heard it's very
I would
dreamlike.
love to watch a Princess Diana film, but in reality, would I?
Yeah, I don't
probably
think
gonna be
I
shit.
don't think I'm that arsed.
Anyway, let's get back onto the film we're actually
Yeah,
talking about.
Dog Day
because we've
Afternoon.
gone off on a tangent, and I want to tell you all about
Don't
it.
cut
Like, I'm
any of
really
that stuff.
excited.
We had some good stuff in there.
Anyway,
Right.
is there anything more that you want to say about Dog Day Afternoon before I tell you about
I think just
There's no score.
What?
There's no score. There's pretty much no score.
Yeah, there's like no
It
music
starts
really.
with music, and
It
then...
starts with an Elton John song, which I found to be is it an Elton John song?
I don't know.
I'm sure it's Elton John.
I don't think I know.
But I was
enough
like,
Elton John to recognise.
but I was like, really?
I
In
know
a
his
movie where
voice.
the main character's
actually,
gay? I'm sure it's an Elton John
It
tune.
might be Elton John, but was Elton John out in the early 70s?
But then again, people didn't think Liberace was gay, so what the fuck was happening at the time? Do you know what I mean? People didn't realise Liberace was gay. Have you seen his outfits?
Some people do, and they're not gay.
Well, yeah, there was like a whole thing where like he like pretended to be married to certain women and stuff like that.
Anyway,
Very
like a
interesting.
beard.
Yeah, he did. He had beards.
I had to explain that term of phrase to Adam the other day because he said
We didn't understand what a beard was.
Well, I mean, he wouldn't have heard of it before. Whereas, like, I've obviously heard of it, being very
fair.
into gay culture and all that.
Yeah.
I was telling him I can't remember who he was talking to, and I was like,
Yas
oh,
Queen.
maybe who he was talking to, who he was talking about, and I was like, oh, maybe it's his beard. And he was like, sorry, what? And I was like, it's like a mask. It's like a big gay mask.
Yeah.
And I was like, the wife is the big gay mask.
Yeah, it's big.
So obviously there's, and
Masking.
I don't want to go too far into this, but there's like a conspiracy that Hugh Jackman's wife is his beard.
Yeah, that has been a thing for a while.
Yeah, I didn't
hasn't
want to say
I've
that.
heard
and then
that- I've
for
heard
you
that-
to
I've
be
heard-
like,
No, I've heard that before.
controversial, but yeah,
I've heard that one before.
Yeah, definitely.
It would massively shock me, but at the same time, well, there's also a theory that George Clooney's wife is his beard.
Interesting.
I've heard that one before.
Interesting.
People had that about Kim K with fucking Kanye.
Yes, that's true.
That was a
Actually, didn't
thing,
they? Who was he rumoured to have been with at the
I
time?
can't remember. Was it?
Jeffree Star. It was Jeffree Star, wasn't it?
Oh shit! Yeah, I do remember this because didn't Jeffree Star like sort of play into it?
Yeah, Jeffree Star was like, yeah.
Yes.
I've been
Yeah.
with-
Why not?
We went way too camp there.
Yeah. Jeffree Star's a prick, anyway. So.
He is. I was about to say, sorry, Jeffree Star, for making you so camp, but actually, you're a prick.
No, he's a
so
total prick.
I'm talking right to you now.
Yeah.
Prick.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Sorry, let's.
So I really, I just think like I can see.
Oh yeah, I was saying there's no score.
Yeah.
There's like no music to it whatsoever, other than what's like on the TV or on the radio in the background. And
I
stuff
can
like
see-
that. Like that's the only sort of background sort of noise.
I could
isn't
see
it?
everything. It's honestly like I could see. It was weird. I really like the film. I think it's really, really cool, and I just really like Sidney Lumet as a director. I think I could see almost what it was influenced by more than sometimes I could see scenes in the film. Do you know what I mean? Or like what it influenced. Sorry, not influenced
right.
by.
I was gonna say,
like
so
all
I'm
of those,
not
like
100%
especially those like kind of New York free flowing films, like
Yeah.
as you know, you had like directors like John Cassavetes and stuff like that who had like very like improvisational styles. Literally like Do the Right Thing, which is one of my favorite films, Spike Lee film. But like you can see where like that inspiration came in for a lot of those directors of like looking at him going like, I want something that feels like. Because one of the things I kind of love so much about the film is that like it feels so in the moment. It barely
It's, like,
feels like anyone's
organic, isn't
acting.
it?
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really. The only person that really does is like Sal, like the character Sal. Like he's the
Because
only
he's
one that.
so like.
Yeah, like I kind of love the dynamic.
You know, the
between
bit when he said, "We can go any country you want," and he says Wyoming.
Wyoming.
That was also improvised.
Was that a big
by
improvised
that
thing?
character? So Al Pacino was like,
What?
he's like, it's not country.
Like,
Sorry.
I
don't know geography. And I mean, I can't talk.
Yeah.
I'm fucking terrible at geography. But at least I know that Wyoming is in
I
there.
don't know why he chooses Algeria and then goes spouting it to everyone. I'm like, if
I
you're gonna
know.
get on the plane, the police officer's like, I'm gonna find out that you're in Algeria.
You know what? Even if you said, I'm going here, it depends what their laws are and stuff, don't it?
That's true.
There may not
with
be any
extraditing and stuff like that.
extradition, yeah.
Because there isn't in Paris. That's why. That's where
Fucking, what's his name?
Roman Polanski lives.
Rapist.
That's why he lives in
You know,
Paris.
Quentin Tarantino basically said that Roman Polanski did not rape that young girl because it was consensual.
I'm gonna ruin a lot of people's day with this one. My mate Lol told me this, and I didn't know it was true until I looked it up. Kate Blanchett's son is called Roman. He's named after Roman
Yes,
Polanski.
yeah, I did know that. I think was that
And
not
Kate Winslet has
before-
famously defended both Woody Allen and Roman Polanski because
Yeah.
she did a film with each of them, and then has famously defended them like quite
How-
vehemently.
How can you? How
And I'm
can
like,
you?
I'm not being funny. Woody Allen like adopted his wife, so do you know what I mean? Like,
Literally, yeah.
how are you?
He was
what
the
leg have you got to
adopted
stand on?
dad of his later wife,
Yeah,
who he knew from a very young age.
she was like 3 or something.
So it's
That's
very
so
weird.
uncomfortable.
I've-
Yeah, I kind of love.
Why did we go on the rape?
I don't know. I can't remember. But it was kind of. It's just very very interesting to look at like why.
Oh, because we're
just-
talking about the Algeria thing.
Just everything that this kind of influenced, I think, is like you can see why this was like so influential to like so
Yeah.
many different films because like, and I would honestly say it's like less in story and it's more in style. It's more in style of like, you know, because I was thinking like when I was watching you know all the stuff with you know how you've got like the negotiator. The way him and Sonny interact is so interesting. Like
Which one?
the negotiator's the cop that keeps like coming forward to talk to him
Was
and
his
be
name
like
Maroney or something?
Moretti.
Moretti.
It's Moretti because I kept thinking of the beer. But he just keeps like doing. They like match each other's energy all the time.
Yeah, they
And
do.
I-
Like the first time when they send out one of the bank tellers because he's like asthmatic and stuff, and Al Pacino's like, "Wow!" and then that guy's like, "Ah!"
Yeah. They
and
like,
they're just both like, "Ah!"
and he's like,
just
and he's like
chill the
screaming
fuck
at them
out.
to put their guns
They're
down.
all,
He's
like,
but then
screaming at
he's
each other.
screaming at his officers to put their
Yeah,
guns down and
he's
stuff
like, "You
like
put
that.
the gun down," and then he's like, "Yeah, you put the gun down." It's like, oh, they are on the same side for like that scene.
They're on the same
because
side, I think, for
obviously-
most of it. To be
Well, yeah,
honest.
for most of it, I guess, yeah.
He doesn't want anything
obviously,
bad to happen to Sonny.
Ultimately, Al Pacino is double crossed.
He is double crossed.
because-
He's double crossed by
Which
specifically the
police are always
FBI.
going to do. You'd have to be so naive to not realise that.
Well,
was
I
gonna
think that's what I kept kind of thinking about this. I was like, this.
This guy's a dope.
Wait, he's just naive. He thinks that like, but the problem
His
is
ego
that
is too big.
he's thinking too far on the fly. Like he turns up and he clearly like knows
It's
what
not
banks
a
and stuff like
well-hashed
that.
plan. Oh, yeah, well, he used to work in a bank.
Yeah,
He
like
did.
that's
Like, that's legit.
that again is like this is information that this is what I think it's like most modern films would like spoon feed that information, but that is told through actions.
Yeah, he's just
Like-
like, I literally used to work in a bank. Don't give me this fucking shit. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, just open this one. Those are fucking marked notes.
They're
like,
marked
you can move
bills,
on.
like,
And she like looks at the other lass and she's like, he clearly knows
all
what
of
he's talking
that
about.
is like it's again like the medium of film is like a show don't tell medium, and like so many films now feel like they have to like almost like spoon feed you this information.
Yeah.
Like I
It's
could
not
tell
necessary.
that he was like I could tell that he used to be a soldier, and there was just like certain like you know before his mom mentions it. You could tell from like earlier interactions with certain people and stuff like that.
I mean,
like,
he mentions it pretty early on.
he does mention it, but it's like mentioned like very like offhanded, super off the
we
cuff and
used
stuff
to
like.
be in Vietnam. We're
You know
not
what I mean?
bothered
Like-
about killing people. I think that's only true about him as well.
Yeah,
I don't think it's true about Sal.
what is it? Oh, that he wasn't in Vietnam.
Yeah, and I mean, Sal was supposed to be like 18.
Really.
The real person was 18. John was 27. Sal
Right.
was, I think, about 18 or 19 or something.
Yeah.
But because Al Pacino wanted him to play him, and then he did a good reading for it, they were like, "Ugh, just have to make him older."
Yeah.
And he was actually gay.
What,
even
that
though,
character?
Yeah, even though
there's like a whole
like the real person
element
is
of
the
the
character
story.
essentially. I don't know why
Where-
they changed that, because he met all these people in the gay community and
he
the gay
becomes
bars
this.
and
He
stuff.
becomes this like strange homophobe, like because he's
Like,
like,
whoa, I
"Hey,
don't want
FBI agent, make sure that they
people to-
all know that I'm
That's like
straight."
a priority for him. Should I tell you a bit about it, and you can
Yeah,
just
totally.
like discuss things with us as you go? So obviously, Dog Day Afternoon is inspired by the true events of a bank robbery, and it is really true to what happened. So 3 men attempted this bank robbery. So you've got John Watowitz, who is the ringleader.
Sonny,
Then you've got Salvatore Natruli,
the truly.
I think it is, and Bobby Westenberg. So Bobby
He's the guy
Westenberg is
that
the
runs
one
up
that leaves. So he
instantaneously.
left pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But before they got to Chase Bank, which I'm actually with Chase.
Are you with?
I'm with-
Is that the same Chase?
Yeah, because when I was looking at pictures, it's the same logo, and I was like,
God,
"Oh
that's
shit,
so
it's my
weird.
bank!"
That's so weird.
But they don't have a physical bank anymore. Anyway, so it's Chase Bank that they end up doing the bank robbery on. However, they had gone to at least 2 before that, and one of them they'd pulled up, and one of them had dropped the shotgun because they had it in like a big
It had it like the big box.
No, it's not a gift box. It was like a gum box. What the fuck's a gum? Like Wrigley's gum. It was like a big strip of that, and they had it in that, and they dropped it, and it went off. But they were like outside the bank, so it was like, get in the fucking car,
Yeah,
let's
just
go.
fucking
And
let's go.
They like ran off essentially, and then the second one, this Bobby Westenberg went in, and he ran into a friend of his mum's, so he had to call.
Oh Christ!
So already they weren't doing very well.
Yeah.
But then I'm assuming this was a different day, because then after that they went to Chase Bank. But before they'd gone to Chase Bank, they'd been watching The Godfather to hype themselves up.
That's so
I'm not even joking.
mental.
Yeah. So
That's actually really meta.
yeah.
That both of the actors who played brothers in The Godfather then ended up playing these 2 characters.
Ultimately almost inspired the real events of that film. Yeah.
Whoa, that's proper strange.
They were hyped up by The Godfather,
That's
which
so
I dare say a
strange.
lot of Italian
Italian-Americans, I feel like,
Americans
will have
would have
watched
100%
The Godfather,
been
or read, at least like
hyped
read
up
it,
by
do you know what I
it.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and stuff
I
like
mean,
that, yeah.
not to be stereotypical, but obviously you've got mafiosos and mobsters and stuff like that, and like especially in like the likes of New York, you've got obviously a big Italian like community there, like New Jersey and stuff like that. Obviously
totally.
full of Italians, and they would be hyped.
It's
to
not like
fuck
Brooklyn,
from.
really, typically.
Well,
where you
yeah,
get,
like
a-
all over New
Yeah, true.
York and in the surrounding areas, essentially. So yeah, they were hyped by the Godfather. That was their hype man. And then they decided on the Chase Bank in Brooklyn. That's why
Right, okay.
they went and did the deed. So they went in with
robbery.
shotguns, and they gave the bank teller a note saying, "This is an offer you can't refuse," which is straight from the
Which is
Godfather.
literally just a line from The Godfather?
Yeah, because they literally just watched it, so they were like, "Let's do this shit."
Wow.
It had nothing to do with that because they had no offer to the bank.
Yeah. Sorry, this is totally tangential, but my
We're gonna
brain's
rob
just
you,
my,
that is what
my
I thought.
brain's just thought about it. That bank robbery scene, in terms of like the kineticism of it, like I feel like every film has tried to replicate that. Like
Yeah.
Good Time literally tries to
yeah.
replicate it with its opening.
Well,
Not tries to replicate it, but like that kind of like energetic feel to like the way it all goes down is like
apparently, I don't know if it's outside of New York or what, but apparently the police in America show footage from that to show like and to learn from that of how to control a rowdy crowd.
that's literally
and to how-
basically shown in Mindhunter.
Yeah,
Because there's the whole thing where they're watching Dog Day Afternoon, and it's like
Oh,
about
there you
like
go,
the
yeah.
negotiation with
yeah.
with
So
people
that
who have
like they
hostages and
learn
stuff.
from that essentially. But yeah, it will 100%. It will be like more. I mean, bank heists, they're very similar every time.
Yeah.
Like in terms of film wise,
Mm-hmm.
obviously in real life there won't be, and obviously this did not go to plan.
Yeah. Makes me think of a Place Beyond the Pines as well. Ryan Gosling. Because but that just plays out in like one take, but it's as frenetic, like
Yeah.
where you're like, Christ.
Anyway, so this Bobby Westenberg, he fled the bank almost immediately. Literally, just was like, "Nope, can't do it."
Dipped.
Right, not at
I'm
all.
out.
And you know what? I actually don't blame him for what happened to him, because I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
So they entered the bank. Warwitz and I'm going to struggle with his name literally every time. When I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. No, truly.
No, truly.
They found it to be like half empty, this vault, which obviously, yes, in the film it is, but there's like very little in comparison to what they actually got. So they ended up getting away with $38,000 in cash.
Okay.
Which obviously it's like $1,100 in the film.
Yeah.
A very big exaggeration of what actually happened.
Right, so this is an interesting question. Because I'm sure it's stated in the film that it would have cost about $2,000 to get this.
$2,500.
$2,500
for
yeah.
the sex.
The operation.
The gender reassignment surgery. Yeah.
To get the surgery, and that's just so interesting that they'd like made away with like $38,000. And that's
they didn't make away with it, did they?
Well, no, obviously they didn't. They got caught.
But they almost did. Well, they didn't really almost at all.
What they think they were gonna do once they got to Algeria? Anyway.
How is he getting money to Liz Eden to pay for our sex change?
Well, that's basically one of the things.
Sex change, gender reassignment.
Gender reassignment.
But they got away with $175,000 in travelers' checks. I'm saying got away with, obviously didn't get away. But
that was what was there.
They had 8 bank employees hostage, obviously in the bank. You know that main bank teller, like the senior bank teller, who comes forward and says like,
"Oh," and she's
when
like,
she's outside, and the guy like gets a hold of her.
She's like, I'm not leaving my girls.
Yeah, she's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
She's like, how dare you touch me? But yeah, Al Pacino a second ago is like hanging on to her.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially he's protecting her as well, isn't he?
Well, that's the thing, like
because obviously they put that guy out, and he gets like,
and she's doing like an interview.
Yeah, she's like, girls, I just did this.
I just think I'm on TV.
But
and she's smoking tabs because she never really does that, but she's never done that before.
You know, when Sal's like, you need to respect your body
is a temple.
Like, you know what? Fuck you. You could shoot me at any moment.
Yeah, I know. Why do I need to care about
and she's
what
like,
you fucking think?
Just take care of your body. And you know what? I totally see her point.
I think she's really good in it.
In real life, apparently, she's like a surrogate mother to Al Pacino.
What, like the actual actor?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
I don't think surrogate is in like literally carried him. I think surrogate is
like
in
terms
a
of like
stand-in mother. Like she mothered him probably more than his
82.
own mother.
No, so maybe she's like, I don't know, probably dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be dead. Would she? I couldn't tell if she was like loads older than him.
I wouldn't have said so. I don't want to say loads. But either way, like he knew her personally, and
they were like good friends, sort of thing.
Let's move on.
Who's the other lass? I never know her name. But she was in...
The woman with the tiny little space buns, right?
Yes.
She's in Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen with Lindsay Lohan,
she was in Girls as well.
She was in Girls for like 1 episode.
Yeah. It's like 3 episodes. She does like a weird Russian accent. It's great.
Well, she has a really squeaky, like high-pitched voice, doesn't she? And I remember her...
She's like a big New York
As soon as I seen her face, I was like, I remember her because of her voice.
Yeah.
And then I was on IMDb and I was like, it's literally Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, because she plays Miss Begoli. So if you've seen that, Miss Begoli is in Dog Day Afternoon. It's amazing. Because in Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, she was a bit of a ditzy kind of person. Essentially. She's just like, oh, girls, oh, like all the time. It's great. But as soon as I seen her, I just had flashbacks of that, and I was like, yes, like
she's one of those.
She's she's in cartoons a lot. It's like a voice and stuff.
She's like she's kind of like a low key icon.
Yeah,
like
100%. And
you
really... know what? Our space buns were fucking
tight.
Fire.
I love that whole element where she's like. She basically is like,
she's on the phone
how long do you think
just
this
put tea in, like I don't know when I'll be back. And then she's like, goes to Al Pacino, when do you think this will be over?
When do you think this will be over? I found all that really funny.
Sorry, I thought it would have already been over. So who knows at this point?
And it was like literally we were making jokes in my house when we were watching it. We were like, because it's the fucking 70s. Like he's waiting for his fucking dinner to be on the table, and then she's like, just make what's there, and we were like, pissing ourselves laughing.
Because obviously I think they must have gone in like pretty much closing time. Because obviously there's no customers in there. Yeah, there's no customers in there. Obviously the husband's ringing like, where the fuck are you? Where's my tea?
Yeah, where's me?
Like, woman, get in the
table?
kitchen. And obviously she's just like, oh, I can't look after him tonight. Like,
I'm in a bank robbery.
I know, like, you're just going to have to have
I'm currently a hostage.
Yeah. So there was 8 of them in there. But one of them did manage to sound the alarm, which is why the police and all the reporters and stuff ended there.
What I think is quite cool about that, I kept thinking, like, I think the film, it's not like on Sonny's side, but it shows that like he really doesn't want to hurt anybody like very, very quickly.
Well, they became very fond of him, apparently. They were like kind of looking out for him, and they understood his reasons behind what he was doing as well. So I think they were a bit like, he's an underdog, he's the little guy, you know what I mean? And like he's ultimately like a big fuck you to to the man.
Yeah.
You know what I
And,
mean?
like-
So, and he was very liked by like onlookers and stuff like that, and the bank tellers and stuff.
Yeah.
They were.
Well, they start like chanting his name and stuff outside, don't they?
Yeah,
And shit like that. Like,
so-
it became like it's what I think is so kind of interesting about the film is that like it starts like shifting into this like where it becomes like almost like this cultural thing that's happening where
It's like
like
a cultural moment. Isn't
yeah,
it?
it's a real cultural moment like in that like area where like people like actually kind of were behind this.
Yeah.
And like
Probably not so much his motivation, but just the fact that he's doing it, I think, was more because they probably didn't give a shit about him getting money for his.
yeah, no, like I would say it's
wife's,
more like you have like this like queer man who's like going in robbing a bank, and like it's the fact that like he's so clearly not. I mean, I don't know if this is like how it reflects on real life. I feel like it would, but like how clear that he does not want anyone to fucking get hurt. Like he's just like, I just want to get this money and go.
Yeah,
like,
literally,
I don't
that's all it was.
care. Like,
And obviously, I'll get.
and he
more
never
into
chases after who sounds the alarm or anything. Like that just gets like thrown away very like quickly by the film. It's just like
it. Yeah, someone did it. It's like
someone did it, and he's like, it's happened
I
now.
feel like it would have been expected.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
happened now.
So obviously the police, investigators, reporters all flocked there and stuff like that. It wasn't actually a 14-hour standoff.
14.
14 hours. Because, I mean, they were supposed to be in and out.
Yeah, true.
And then that happened. And then obviously, like, I feel like the type of person that he is, he wouldn't have let it lie. So it was 14 hours. Obviously, he ordered pizza and stuff for the hostages.
Yeah.
He tipped the delivery
He
guy.
wanted to pay for it. I find that so like
I know,
fascinating.
he's like, I need some money for this pizza and that. I thought, you're demanding this.
Yeah, I know.
You're not gonna have to fucking pay
You don't have to
for it.
pay,
You could
but
have
he
just
tips.
rang.
But he tips the guy. I love that the guy's like, I'm going to be a star.
Yeah,
like,
he's
as
like,
soon as he
"Yes."
goes in.
And then obviously he throws money to the crowd and stuff. Like, this all really happened.
Oh,
Like,
right, okay.
legit, this all happened.
That's quite cool. Actually.
So obviously this John Wojtowicz was the ringleader of it. He quickly took, like, I think he more or less came up with the plan anyway.
Right, okay.
Because the motivation for this Sal, I think his sister was in like foster care.
Right.
So he wanted the money to help his sister get out of foster care.
Oh,
of
right,
thing. I
okay.
think
So
that
it was like,
his-
so it wasn't just like the only motivation, wasn't just
yeah,
like
they all had
the
different
surgery.
different motivations and stuff. So yeah, obviously, like I say, all the hostages kind of became fond of him after a while, and they were just
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, like he's not that bad. Like he's obviously not trying
There's
to
like
hurt anybody.
there's
He's
like
got
good
his
intentions
motivations.
there. Yeah.
Positive intent, isn't it?
Yeah.
So John Wotowicz's spouse, who was
Uh-huh.
Liz Eden, she was actually in hospital at the time for a attempted suicide.
Right. Okay.
So-
I thought it was that for some reason I got from the film that she'd been what was it? Where you like get admitted to psychiatric hospital? What's it called?
No, so I think the film
What's the phrase for that?
partially sectioned.
Sectioned. That's it.
I think the film partially alluded to that. She was sectioned at one point though, because this was what I learned from the documentary that I
Right.
watched.
Okay.
So he was basically like showing the film crew around, and he was like, there's like a pizzeria or like a takeaway type thing, and that used to be their apartment. And he said that they had a massive row where they were, like, she was gonna cut herself or kill herself with a
Right,
knife,
okay.
and he's like trying to get it off her and that. And the police came, and the police were gonna section them basically, but he turned around and kind of blamed her and stuff like that.
Right, okay.
And because she was trans, it would have been more believed that she would have been the one that needed section and stuff.
Totally.
So I think she was in a psychiatric hospital for
At
a
one
time,
point.
but not that time.
Not that. Yeah.
So she had recently committed suicide, and it was also recently, no, sorry, not
I
committed,
tried to.
had attempted suicide, and it was recently her birthday as well. So that's why he says
says
happy
happy
birthday,
birthday.
Leon. It's not the day of the birthday, but it was.
Right, okay.
Like she attempted this suicide on her birthday.
Right. Okay.
But obviously he's like talking about it all and why he's doing it and stuff like that. So obviously she was brought to the scene to attempt to diffuse the situation essentially.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But obviously in the film he asks for her, but I found that they got this person to diffuse the situation. I don't know what's more right, you know what I mean? So they essentially persuaded the police and stuff to take them to JFK Airport, which is
Right,
obviously in
okay.
the film,
Uh-huh.
and then for them to board a plane and get
Uh-huh.
out of there kind of thing. But obviously they shot Sal
Uh-huh.
when they got there, and he quickly just surrendered and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was
yeah.
pretty much the end of that.
The film just like is just like right, we're
That's
done.
it. Well, that's it. That is it.
Yeah.
Until like years later after the film, and then you had other stuff going on. So from the documentary, the information that I got was basically he was supposed to have some sort of plea deal where he didn't get as long, but he was actually sentenced to 20 years.
Oh, okay.
But he only served 5.
Right, okay.
While he was in prison, he claims that he was like gang raped and stuff like that,
okay.
and which obviously is horrific. But he also met another gay man in prison who used to dress as a woman sometimes, and he was very attracted to that aspect of gay men. I think he was attracted to like feminine gay men and gay men that like dressed as women and stuff like that. I think he just liked that for whatever reason, which is absolutely fine. But he essentially married this George, I think their name was, in prison. So they were like, they referred to themselves as his partner.
Right,
but
okay.
he called them his wives for whatever reason. But I'm unsure if this person was trans, but I'm also not 100% that they weren't.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So they got married in prison, like in the prison thing. And they helped him get out on like parole after this sort of 5-year period. It didn't sort of say how, it just said he was like, oh, like George helped us get out and stuff like that.
Right, okay.
And then this George got out of prison as well, and then they went to live with his mother. His mother claims that she used to go around when he used to go to the Village, which is obviously like the gay community of like New York and stuff like that. And she used to like see him going into these gay bars and stuff like that. And I was like, and she was like, I knew it all kind of thing. And I was like, well, it's easy to say that after the fact.
Oh yeah, of course
like,
it is.
Very easy to say that after the fact. But obviously he was in the army, and that's where he claims he had his first sexual interaction with a man.
Right.
Which in the dog he elaborates on that and basically says like he was dreaming about getting a blowjob from this guy, and he woke up and he was actually getting a blowjob from this guy, and he was like, whoa, what are you doing, kind of thing. And this guy was like, well, is it good? It's like, yeah, fair play. Like, that's just
Jesus Christ.
And it just continues. And then that was their relationship essentially while they were in prison.
Right. Okay.
He had also met this woman called Carmen, who in the film is called Angie. That's his wife.
Right, okay.
His cisgender legal wife.
Legal wife, yeah.
He had met her before going in the army, and her family hoped that he died in Vietnam because they didn't want him to come back and marry their daughter. Yeah.
Okay.
But unlucky for them, he did come back.
Yeah, he did come
married
back.
their daughter, had kids and whatnot. And then they like broke up and stuff like that. He was having
the casting of her in the film. She's just like such a normal looking woman. For like the time.
I mean, she was essentially
just a normal looking woman.
Hysterical Italian woman.
Yeah, it's just like, and she's like, I always found the editing I found really, really weird in that moment because she's not talking, and it's like different films will do this thing where they'll like edit someone talking before they actually see them talking within the scene. Like they'll do that, but it was like, is this an accident? I kept being like, is this an accident? But I was like, oh no, this is obviously the conversation that she's had on the stairs with the police officers.
Yeah.
But it's just like so like, who's talking right now?
Yeah.
And then she comes into the scene, and then you kind of it's revealed that that's like his.
It's funny because I don't
his cisgender
like. Apparently,
wife.
she did watch it from home and was like, "What the fuck? Like that's
husband.
Johnny. Like what's going on?" Kind of thing.
Wild.
But they were separated at the time, so it wasn't a case of like a literal like wife.
Yeah.
But they were kind of partially seeing each other at times. I think.
Right. Okay.
It's a weird time for John. So yeah, so he only served the 5 years. He was a self-professed pervert.
What?
Loved sex. Was all about sex. He was well known in the gay scene, which I've already said. And actually, he was so well fucking known. Obviously, he was around for like the Stonewall riots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a journalist, a gay journalist in The Dog, the documentary, who had a lot to do with John Watowitz from the gay community, who was in The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson. Have you seen that? You know who
no,
Marsha
I've
P.
never
Johnson
seen it. I've just heard about it.
So Marsha P. Johnson, and the P stands for Pay It No Mind, which I love. I feel like putting a P in my name for like fucking Pay It No Mind.
Pay It No Mind.
So Marsha Pay It No Mind Johnson was rumoured, but they declined this rumor that they were the one who threw the brick at the Stonewall riot.
Oh,
but she
right.
said she didn't do it. She said she didn't do it.
Right, okay.
But she died, and the police said it was a suicide. But the whole gay community was like, no, it was a murder. Like, you had it out for
Right,
her.
okay.
Like, so she was trans. It's a great documentary. I love that documentary. One of our best friends was Sylvia Rivera, who is so, like, I'm assuming from New Jersey. That's the assumption of the accent that I'm getting. And she said, the way she says Marsha, so she was like, Marsha, and it's just so good the way that she says Marsha. But she was also a trans woman, obviously big on trans activist movement at the time and stuff like that.
Is she got anything to do with Paris is Burning?
No, this was a bit before that, but it would have been the same sort of community.
To watch that.
Oh,
I still haven't watched it.
I've got on DVD.
Can I borrow it?
That's a big ask.
Oh, is that a massive
Paris is
one?
Burning.
Is that a big one?
That's a big ask.
Okay.
Can't believe you've not seen Paris is Burning.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah.
So good. So good.
I've had like so many like times where I've been like, oh, I'm gonna watch it with this person, or like we're gonna watch it together and stuff like that. And like,
so good.
it's never came into fruition.
I was watching it, and Adam was doing something at the time. He wasn't watching it like with us or anything, and he kept like looking up and like laughing at what they were saying and stuff. Have you seen Pose? Have you watched Pose?
I've watched the first series.
Pose is almost like a fictional version of Paris is Burning.
Right. Okay.
Because there is massive inspiration from some characters in Paris is Burning.
Right. Okay.
But it's also stuff that you know from after.
Okay.
So you'll have to watch it, and then I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, cool.
Because there's so much, right? You know what? You don't use Twitter, so you wouldn't know.
No.
But there was a big time where they were like serving cunt while doing this.
Yeah, I know about the serving cunt thing. Yeah.
And there was a one which I can't tell you about now because it won't really ruin it. Actually, there's a transgender woman an older transgender woman in Paris is Burning. I can't remember her name now. But she basically, have you seen all of Pose? How much have you seen of Pose?
I've just seen the first series.
This is going to ruin bits of Pose. It won't ruin Paris is Burning because it's not in Paris is Burning. It's just what I know after that.
Right. Okay.
But it will ruin Pose. Are you going to finish Pose?
Maybe. I have like a weird like love-hate relationship with Ryan Murphy.
Anyway, so this older transgender woman in the fucking ballroom community of New York,
right,
for about 20 years up until her death, she had a man's body in a trunk in her house. So you can see the trunk in Paris is Burning, but there's a big inspiration in Pose that happens.
Right, okay.
But she basically had an altercation with like a John. So she was like a sex worker at times as well.
Okay.
Had to kill this person for the sake of her own life, essentially.
Right, okay.
Put him in this trunk and just kept it there. And it was discovered after her death. Which, you know what?
What?
So the thing that on Twitter that I seen was a picture of her still from Paris is Burning, and it was like serving cunt while owning like a dead body or something ridiculous like that. And I was like, fucking goddamn
how the fuck did she get away with that for so long?
Because essentially, I think she was, I don't know if it's similar to Pose. I'd have to read it up again. But this John was obviously seeing a transgender woman. He wouldn't have told anybody he was doing that.
Yeah, true, yeah.
So it wouldn't have been, they wouldn't have been a suspect. Because
is this something to do with India Moore's character?
No.
Right, okay.
India Moore, other than just obviously being a transgender woman in the ballroom community.
Well, no, because she's like in the show, she's a sex worker, isn't she?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people were from the ballroom community.
I just weirdly, she was the first one I came to mind.
Transgender and also homosexual people of the time would have been sex workers because they wouldn't have been accepted in your bog standard kind of job.
Yeah.
So a lot of trans people would do sex work, at least at some point in their life. This Liz Eden, she also did sex work. She died of pneumonia with AIDS-related complications.
Right.
So, and that was in 87, 88. Anyway, back to this story. Because the guy's called Randy, so he's a journalist. He's a gay journalist, and he did a lot around Stonewall and stuff like that. He's in a lot of Stonewall documentaries and stuff. He just popped up in the dog documentary.
Yeah.
And I was like, 100% I know this person, and it was because of the Marsha
Right, okay.
P. Johnson documentary as well. That was just a little random tidbit.
Random
Anybody
little tidbit.
that loves the gay culture.
I actually saw
Absolutely
the word cut come across your eyes as you were talking this time.
Oh, I'm not cutting that.
Oh, so you'll cut my stuff.
There is no Paris's Burn. I would never cut Paris's
You
Burn.
love cutting my stuff.
So he actually joined a gay activist alliance,
Right, okay.
which I was like, when I read it, I was like, fucking good for you, John. I was
Yeah.
like, amazing. Because he'd basically like just been out as a gay man by then. His marriage to his cisgender wife was
Done.
crumbling.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing there essentially. However, this is where John turns bad.
Pretty dodgy bloke from what you get from the
100%
film,
dodgy.
to be honest.
It's going to get more dodgy. So he was a member of the entertainment committee, and he used this committee to meet new people coming to the gay community who were essentially like coming out by
Right.
coming to the gay community. And he would have sex with them before anybody else could get a chance. That was his words. His words. So he'd be like, yep, let's fucking have sex. But to be fair, him and Al Pacino at the time looked very, very similar. So he was obviously a semi-attractive man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Al Pacino is more attractive than he was. But he was like a semi-attractive man. He's like this face in this gay activist community and stuff like that. And he's just taking advantage of that and fucking sleeping with everybody.
That's pretty.
And they would have been young
weird.
as well. You know?
Yeah, like really kind of abuses of power.
Yeah, 100%. And he had no power, but
Yeah.
he was abusing the small percentage of power that he had.
Almost
But
abusing.
they ultimately kicked
like
him out
reputation
because of this.
almost.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Like that's obviously not the reputation that they would have wanted to have.
Yeah,
They were
which is just
fucking-
like if you turn up to this group, like you will get dragged by this bloke.
Yeah, essentially. They were like they, I think, did kind of be like, oh no. So yeah, his literal
Ruin
words
everything
was
again.
to have sex with them quicker than anybody else.
Classic.
Yeah.
What a
So
guy.
obviously John and his wife then fucking just over. But then he met his next wife, which was Liz Eden,
Okay.
obviously in the gay community.
Yeah.
And she wanted to undergo this gender reassignment surgery for quite a while. And he didn't want her to have it at
Right,
all. He was
okay.
really against her having it because ultimately I think his thing was feminine gay men that dressed as women. Like that was his thing.
Yeah.
And obviously he didn't want then for her to ultimately be a woman and have
Yeah. He didn't want to
you know,
be with a woman.
like female genitalia and stuff like that. Like that wasn't actually what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But then because she was so depressed, she tried to kill herself and stuff like that. That's where he sort of went, look, I'm going to have to do this because it's going to save her life.
Right. Okay.
And it kind of did for a time, but she has expressed that the whole thing ruined her life. And I know, which is honestly, I'm like, yeah, fucking trans activism. But then at the same time, I was like, oh. But she
Plus,
has
there was a
also
fucking film made about 2 years after it happened.
well, the money that they got from the film actually paid for her gender reassignment surgery.
No fucking way.
Yeah. So he made sure that she had the money straight away, like, and that was it. And then as soon as like she got the money, she had the.
Are you talking about like Sidney Lumet? Like when they.
No, like John made sure. Cause,
Oh, was the
'cause
rights
obviously
to
they
his
had
story
to-
bought off him?
Yeah, they had to obviously ask him.
Right. Okay. That's wild.
So he spoke to Liz and said like, look, if we get money for this, like, you need to get that gender reassignment surgery, and she did straight away, literally like instantaneous,
Fair,
pretty
that's
much.
pretty sick.
But there was friends of hers in the dog, because obviously this was made after her death, that said it didn't really give her the satisfaction that she wanted from it.
Right. Okay.
And then she went into sex work and stuff like that more than she had been earlier and stuff.
Right,
And obviously
okay.
got AIDS, and then ultimately that was what killed her, kind of thing. But and John accredits it to himself being the saver of her life and stuff like that. So
Of course he did.
he sounded like a good guy, and then you kind of dig deeper, and he's not that great
Yeah.
of a
He's
guy.
a bit of a prick.
So he really didn't want her to have it. But then because of the suicide and stuff like that, that's where he was like, right, let's do it. There was also a rumor, which was apparently debunked, but I'm not 100% certain. Like, it was just a rumor that he.
Whoa, that was a big one, that one.
I'm just hoping it doesn't pick it up. On the thing, I know.
That'll
that
come up on the mic, so.
Yeah, probably. It'll be like, "Hello!" So there was a big rumor that he actually owed the mafia money to pay for his and Liz's wedding previous, because
Oh,
apparently
wow.
her dress and the bridesmaid dresses all cost about $700 or something, which obviously
Did they say 800 in the film? Or
something like that, like in
yeah.
the early 80s, like in the early
A lot of
80s.
fucking
in the
money.
early 70s, that would have been a lot more
Yeah.
than $700 to us now. But that was just a rumour. So, but even if it was, and he was still going to pay for her gender reassignment surgery, like, good for him, but also not bad. He essentially said that parts of the film were wrong because, you know, when that FBI guy kind of says, like, kill Sal.
Yeah, he kind of suggests to
Yeah,
Sal,
he's like,
like,
get rid of
we'll get rid
Sal.
of Sal. No, he
Yeah.
says, like, we'll get rid of Sal, doesn't he?
Oh, well,
He's like, we'll deal with Sal.
essentially, he didn't like, this John Watowitz didn't like that was in the film because he never made, like,
Any kind of, like,
an
weird, like,
underlying
underhanded deal
to
with
be
the
like, look,
FBI.
like, we'll get him and you'll be fine kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, he said, he was like, that was never the case.
Okay.
I mean, that's his word. You know
Yeah,
what I
that's
mean?
his
Like,
words, yeah.
who knows? He also said that he didn't like how they portrayed Liz, and that they made Liz portrayed her like a bit horrible and not very nice.
Right.
Which obviously I've already said I'm not a massive huge fan of the portrayal simply because it wasn't a transgender actress, but
Yeah.
what can you ask of the 70s? But yeah, I thought that was interesting that he actually didn't like Liz's portrayal in the film,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting.
Probably was quite happy with Al Pacino's, though.
So after this, yeah, I think so. Especially being Al Pacino.
I'd be
as well.
fucking chuffed if it was Al Pacino playing you, wouldn't you?
After he got out of prison, he applied to be a security guard at different banks.
Fuck off.
And he said, you want the dog being your security.
You want the dog?
You want the dog to be your security, and, you know, no one will rob the dog, essentially. And they all politely declined. However, there was a lot of people who were obviously fans of him and stuff like that, like getting pictures of him outside banks and stuff like that. And he had a T-shirt that's saying, like, I robbed this bank and stuff like that. And obviously people were kind of complaining about that.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, if these people didn't want to take a photo of him, he wouldn't get
He
these
wouldn't,
photos.
like,
so
want to do
actually, it's
this.
the crowd's fault as well. Obviously, he's playing up to it, but they're playing up to him playing up to it.
Yeah,
And he was like, but also, how come,
It's almost like
you
a
know,
self-fulfilling
Warner Brothers or
prophecy, isn't it?
whoever it was that produced this film can make money off it, but I can't.
Yeah.
He was like, so tell me that. And I was like, you know what?
That's a
It's
very good
all
point that he's making,
glorifying. Like, it's just layers of glorifying,
Yeah.
essentially. Which obviously, you know, if people weren't so interested in true crime, it wouldn't be such a fucking money-making thing.
I mean, we literally are doing a podcast about stuff. Like,
I mean, we're not making money.
no, we're not making any money. Someone, if you could help. We'd like to make some money off this.
Just asking for friends.
Maybe a little bit.
But not off true crime, though.
Yes.
Like, it's just us chatting.
It's just us chatting,
Just
really,
us,
isn't it? Yeah.
just us. But I thought it was really interesting that he obviously pointed that out. And then I was saying to Adam last night, I was like, but ultimately the crowd is the ones that want the photos of him.
Yeah.
And he's getting paid to do it by
So
the
why wouldn't you?
crowds. Like, exactly, why wouldn't he?
He's not pulling a William Shatner.
He didn't kill anybody. Yes, Sal ended up killed.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that wasn't him that did it. Yeah, it was a stupid
You would say,
thing
like,
to
the
do
situation
from them.
of he
The
got him
situation ended up with that. So yeah, obviously they declined his thing, and that's all I have from that. But yeah, so this documentary that I watched was out in 2017. He died in 2005, I think it was.
Right,
He had
okay.
cancer. But yeah, there was like interviews that Liz did, and there was times where she said, like, she was kind of fond of him and then not and stuff like that. But she also actually said and stuff that she wasn't so much depressed because she didn't have the gender reassignment surgery. He had been sending letters to her, essentially saying, like, you've got this many days to live, this many days to live. And it was getting shorter and shorter up until her birthday. So that's why she tried to kill herself on her birthday. That's what she said.
Well, the Johnny was sending her these
Yeah,
letters.
yeah. This John Watowitz guy was
Whoa,
sending her
that's
these. Lived with her as well. Like, why would you do that? And was like, you've got 19 days, like, left to live kind of thing. So she thought, well, if he's going to kill us, I may as well kill myself.
Holy shit.
This is what she said. So I think on the surface, trans activism, deep down, exploiting a trans person.
Yeah,
ultimately,
really,
isn't
really
it?
exploitative and quite uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah. There was bits of it where I was like, oh, I really liked this story. But then at the same time, I was like, oh, it's taking a bad turn here. But
It was the 70s.
no, I was going to say, like, every good story could have a bad undertone to
Oh,
it.
yeah,
you know
of
what
course,
I mean?
yeah.
Oh, shit, sorry. I'm
You
saying
just-
sorry
you just
to a
apologised
microphone.
to a microphone.
I'm sorry, microphone. That was really horrible of me. So So yeah, that's Dog Day Afternoon. I
That's
thought
Dog
it
Day
was a
Afternoon.
really interesting story.
I really like the film.
The film's good.
I really like it. I can see why it's
I wouldn't
so...
say I loved it. I thought that
I
the
wouldn't say I loved it.
directing, the casting, like
The acting, I think.
the plot.
The
I mean,
acting,
I'm
I
saying the
think.
plot. It was kept close to the true events and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I was that like riveted by the film. I
Yeah.
did give it 4 stars on Letterboxd just simply because I appreciated the film. Essentially.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, you know, when you watch like certain films from like certain generations and stuff like that, I think where you almost go like, I appreciate it more than I like it.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I think that's where I kind of sat
I have
with
that
that.
with some
Like,
films from like
I wouldn't have said I would have
70s and
loved
stuff.
it.
Yeah. I have that with Deer Hunter.
I wouldn't watch
I
it
appreciate
again.
it as a film more than I like it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't massively like it, I just appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that it exists and something like that was made.
I think that's maybe where I'm sitting with this as well. Like, obviously, I
think
thought
Sid-
the story was
I think-
nicer than it was. But it
Yeah,
wasn't.
I think Sidney Lumet made better movies, to be honest.
Oh, well, there you go.
But his movies before, and I think he made movies after that were better than that, I think. Mm-hmm. Very cool director. Like, quite a big fan of his, actually. But yeah,
Let's draw to a close.
well, that's it done.
So yeah, that was Dog Day Afternoon.
Aye.
We talked about the film. We talked about the true events.
Pretty interesting.
Hopefully, you'll see the video for this, but might not have.
Yeah. Hopefully you see my dumb face, but probably not.
And mine. Don't forget mine. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Yeah. This
You'll see our faces over
I was
there.
going to say like where to find the podcast, but then actually like if they're listening to it, that means they're like,
yeah, you found it already.
you found it.
Well done.
Well done.
Apple, Spotify, pretty much everywhere that you can get them, I think.
Yeah.
And
Samsung,
hopefully we'll have... Shut the fuck up.
Deezer,
Hopefully we'll have...
Napster.
Hopefully we'll have some visual up as well.
Yeah, that would be class actually if we had
Yeah.
the visual of.
So,
Right.
that's us.
Yeah, that's us. Ta-ra.
See you next time.
Sick.